What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the latest edition, post-draft, two skinny dudes, Jared Bailey, Jason Aponte, and a couple of our friends here to discuss everything that just happened the past few days because, Jay, leading up to this entire thing, everybody was talking about number three, and you and I and a host of other, 49ers Twitter members were going very much against the grain of it being one McCorkle Jones from Alabama, and lo and behold, it wasn't that. Now, it wasn't who we thought it was gonna be, but I feel like we got a solid comp for it. How you feeling after these past few days?
Look, just because I prefer Justin Fields, over Trey Lance doesn't go against what we thought, and it was never Mac. And I think that's really what we're taking the lap on right now. If anything, it was never Mac Jones. Again, we talked about it, Jared. I don't want to talk crazy about people who have done more for the community, the NFL community, the NFL community than we have, right? Like people who have done things that I dream to aspire to do. But I think this was a masterclass in one, the 49ers front office, and two, what does the media really portray? And I'll leave it at that, and I'll let you guys speculate after that. You're on mute. You're on mute, Jack.
Let's try it again. The thing for me was that there was a time leading up to this where people were just writing in Mac Jones at three, and you and I came on this same show just saying this is no, like that makes absolutely no sense. So I think it's good for 49ers fans that one, they got Trey Lance, the best dual threat in this draft. He's at all the potential to be Lamar Jackson, just with a better arm. That's what I've said from the jump on this. But good for 49ers, good for the 49ers fans. And I think what we expected to happen, obviously came to fruition in a number of ways. Obviously, it wasn't Justin Fields, who a lot of 49ers fans were hopeful about. But Trey Lance, definitely nothing to be upset about. Let me
Not
know
at
if Jason.
all. No, no, I know. I'm sorry. Not at all. And I wanted to get Jordan and Faraz's thoughts on this. So we'll start with Jordan. Jordan, talk to me, man. I mean, you seem to be excited. Everybody assumes to know how we feel about things on Twitter because we joke around on stuff. But can I get a serious Jordan take on what happened at three here, and then we'll pass to Faraz right after.
So I obviously joked a lot about Mac Jones coming there because it was the only way I could even deal with the month-long rumors that it was like locked in that was going to happen. So yeah, I joked around a bunch. I was initially admittedly higher on Justin Fields. I liked a lot of the things he did, but as we got through the process and I was forced to commit one way or the other, I ultimately leaned Trey Lance, and it was because of two things. One, I thought he was a much more natural thrower of the football. Trey Lance just had this aesthetically pleasing throwing motion that Justin Fields did not seem to have. Justin Fields had this dip in his elbow when he threw that irritated me probably more than it should have. And he ultimately still is a good player, good prospect. The ball still got there, but that was something that I wondered if the mechanics really would be an issue moving forward. And then two, there were some concerns with the epilepsy and stuff like that. I ultimately think that's what dropped Justin Fields down. And I think that while the prospects were very close, I think that Trey Lance's cerebral ability that Kyle's spoken very highly of and his physical intangibles, and again, just being a more natural thrower of the football while still being that big athlete, everything checked out for me. On a live I did literally the night before the draft, when it was Jones, Fields, and Lance were the guys they were all talking about. I thought that Trey Lance was the best blend of the things that Jones and Fields both did well. And ultimately, that's where I ended up leaning. And it was I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was Lance all the way the whole time. I just ultimately felt like he had a slight edge over Justin Fields. And now that we're hearing how well he tested on all the psychological exams they gave him, all the film breakdowns and all the stuff Kyle had him do from a mental standpoint, the pick makes a lot of sense. And I'm excited, dude. I'm very excited for the future in San Francisco.
Awesome, man. And for us, as someone who had the number two pick, right, in front of as a Jets fan, what would you say about what you guys got and what, how the 49er fans should feel about having something at three?
Well, I mean, it was either for me. It was either they draft Trey Lance or they draft Justin Fields, and either way, they have somebody who can play outside the pocket. Has ability outside the pocket. That's really what it comes down to, because it just gives Kyle Shanahan so much more to work with, right? I mean, you're basically, if you're going to have a one-dimensional quarterback, that one-dimensional quarterback better have amazing traits, right? If you can't escape the pocket, if you can't make plays out of the pocket, then you're going to have to be exceptional. And Mac Jones wasn't going to be that guy, right? So I'm happy that. And by the way, Jarrett, it's really nice to meet you, man. It's the first time talking to you. I feel like I need to introduce myself first before I keep talking. But yeah, no, I think it was a, sure, like a lot of us thought it was going to be Justin Fields, and I'm happy that they went Trey Lance instead of Mac Jones. But I did feel like they probably would have been a. I don't know. I like Mac. I like Justin Fields way better, but at the same time, the ceiling is there. We know what he could do in that system. There's not a lot of quarterbacks that won't be able to succeed in that system. And but I think Trey Lance, he has some issues, right? He wasn't, mistake free, even though he didn't throw any interceptions that year. There were a few interceptions that, were there that just were dropped. But at the same time, like, we know that he's not as he's not going to make too many mistakes. Let's put it that way. Which is great. That one year, he was there. He didn't have that extra year of film on him, which is fine. I think Kyle saw enough. He's willing to work with him. As far as from a Jets perspective, like, I'm ecstatic the way the Jets draft turned out to be. We knew it was going to be Zach Wilson this whole time, but throughout these picks, man, like Jay, me, man, like we spent the weekend together, and like every pick, it was just lining up, man. Like we got our quarterback, we got someone to protect him, we got our wide receiver Elijah Moore, we got our running back and Michael Carter. I mean, and the values were just lining up. And as a Jets fan, this is one of the few times we're happy, after a draft. Like even during the draft, Jets fans are usually super upset. So this was a good weekend for us.
No, so this guy wants to act crazy on us or whatever because I love Michael Carter. And all these guys they ended up drafting. Honestly, the Jets did an amazing job. So that kind of leads us into the next thing. Jared, who would you say were winners in this draft? Because we're done now. Not even specifically after the first round, but going forward, who do you think was winners? Who do you think maybe missed the boat? Give us some of your thoughts.
Well, first of all, Frosh, you should be incredibly ecstatic because you got porn on turf, sex on grass, Zach Wilson as your quarterback going forward, man. Jay knows more than anybody how much I love Zach Wilson, and I would have traded my soul to the devil to get him in a Steeler uniform, but unfortunately was not the case. The Detroit Lions, though, if we're talking about teams who had great classes, I'm going to come back to the Jets because, Faraj already touched on a lot of it. I'll stay with the Jets for a minute because getting Michael Carter at the value that they got him at, my God, what did they get? 4th round pick on Michael Carter. They get Elijah Moore. They trade up and get Elijah Vera Tucker, somebody who's regarded as really one of the best versatile offensive linemen in the class. So right away, they're getting Zach Wilson protection, and they're getting him weapons because they don't want Sam Darnold 2.0. And I think Robert Saleh, I think Joe Douglas realized that. So getting Elijah Moore on top of already signing Corey Davis, getting Keelan Cole in there as a specialist who can be that 4th or 5th receiver, Denzel Mims from last year. That offense is looking very, very good, and I like what they did a lot. And then you look at the Detroit Lions having Penei Sewell fall in their laps in the first round, and then what they did throughout the rest of the draft. I'm trying to pull it up right now because I can't remember everybody off the top of my head, but Detroit was crushing it. I really liked what the Lions did. We had
St. Brown.
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown ended up signing with them. Like, fantasy analysts are just like, okay, I guess he's their wide receiver 1. It's like
literally,
because
yeah,
because there is that room. A lot of people were high on Amon-Ra St. Brown. I personally, I watched some of him. I couldn't really get a feel on him, to be honest with you. He didn't really wow me. But at the end of the day, like, who do they have on their team right now? Right, Tyrell Williams. They have the rookie last season who popped a little bit. But not much, man. So like, it's one of those things where I'm looking at him, in Dynasty, like just to see what happens. A lot of people comped him to Robert Woods. And then maybe that's part of the reason why they drafted him, just so that, Robert Woods and Jared Goff obviously had a little bit of a chemistry, I guess. Probably was a team, to be honest with you. But at the same time, they drafted somebody who has a similar skill set.
And speaking of Sam Darnold, Carolina Panthers hit it out of the park. They got him weapons all over the field. They got Shi Smith, one of my favorite players in the draft in the 6th round. They got so much talent to put on that offense to prevent him from having any sort of excuses for him to not succeed. So Carolina
Jared.
really did a good job too. Go ahead,
Jared,
Jay.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's up?
Terrence Marshall, right? He went
Yeah.
to okay. Is there a world where Terrence Marshall pushes DJ Moore into the slot?
That's the thing. I feel like that's the best move. Just put DJ Moore in the slot, have him replace Samuel, and then have Terrence Marshall. You got Shi Smith. Shi Smith is another guy they can put in the slot as well. Robbie Anderson on the outside. They got 4 capable receivers now. They draft Chuba Hubbard as well to back up Christian McCaffrey. My God, man. They went off.
Jordan, DJ Moore, dynasty shares. If he plays and lives in that slot, this is like over the top type shit. And I just don't know. That's why I'm asking, because Jared makes a good point. They have plenty of people who can make those moves, and I forgot about Chuba Hubbard backing up Christian McCaffrey, and that has to kind of make you a little bit nervous now about Christian McCaffrey as the 1-1 in any dynasty startup, because now what's going to happen with the snap share. But more than anything, I think that DJ Moore into the slot thing is more interesting to me. Talk to me about what you think about that, Jordan.
Well, I mean, I think the whole reason that the Panthers even let Curtis Samuel walk without much resistance was because they know that they're going to end up paying DJ Moore. DJ Moore's not going anywhere. I really like Terrace Marshall. I was surprised he fell that low. But even with him and Robbie Anderson, and even McCaffrey, to come from McCaffrey's volume too, there's no way I don't see DJ Moore still being at the very least a highest of high end wide receiver 2s. And I still think he could be a low end wide receiver 1 just based purely on the volume, especially if he does move to the slot. I am a Sam Darnold believer. I think that he just was in a terrible situation. No offense to the Jets, but they were not the model franchise the last couple seasons. And I think that the amount of weapons they put around him, they're in a position with that Joe Brady creative mind calling plays for them. That Joe Brady offense is going to really put Sam in the best spot possible. And again, I'm not expecting him to go out and have an MVP season, but I think that they're going to be able to throw the ball a lot more. And I would be buying low. Are you buying low technically? But if people are starting to get a little bullish on DJ Moore, I would buy right now for sure, because I still think that
a 23-year-old stud. That's what, like, imagine buying low on something like that. Like
he's the best receiver on the team. He's still the best receiver on the team by far.
Oh, of course.
And he's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. And I think people got a little, at least from the dynasty community's Iman, people are down on him for whatever reason after last season. I would be loading up on DJ Moore shares if I could.
Yeah, I've been saying all offseason, buy DJ Moore. You know what I mean? And it's not even because of the fact that Curtis Samuel left. DJ Moore was like top 10 in air yards last year. There was a lot of missed opportunities there. The quarterback was a big reason for that. He wasn't throwing the ball downfield. I mean, he was, but he wasn't hitting, right? All of what Teddy Bridgewater was doing was short to intermediate. That's where Robbie Anderson played, right? He was playing that short to intermediate role, sometimes went deep. But the deep guy there was DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson was playing more in the slot than DJ Moore was last year. But that was mainly because Curtis Samuel was the primary slot receiver, right? But now with Terrace Marshall played in the slot last year in LSU, but with Joe Brady, he was on the outside with DeMar Chase on the outside as well, with Justin Jefferson in the slot. So now back with Joe Brady, it'll be interesting to see if he leaves him back outside, slides DJ Moore into the slot, Robbie Anderson primarily playing on the outside. Either way, DJ Moore is a buy. I think people were down on him from last year. Now casuals are going to be like, hey, they just added a legit wide receiver. What are the chances that DJ Moore is going to be doing their thing? You're drafting DJ Moore at his absolute floor right now. And in Dynasty, he's still in buy in most leagues.
You got it, Jared. Who else were winners in this draft?
How about the Cleveland Browns having Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah fall right into their laps in the 2nd round? He's the guy who I thought they should have taken in the 1st round. They take Greg Newsome instead. Yeah, go ahead.
They drafted Demetric Felton. Imagine being in a luxury spot like that. But go ahead. You can. That's when I really knew that they were crushing the draft. But go.
They had so many. Here's the thing with this draft, though, and there's going to be a lot of undrafted free agents that sign really quick that would have been drafted in any other league. But with all the opt-outs and everything, this is the deepest class that maybe we've ever seen. So this is just a weird thing to begin with. But the fact that they took Greg Newsome, I believe was it Greg Newsome in the 1st round? I'm not high, am I? It was Greg Newsome.
Daz.
Okay, I knew it was a corner. So they take Greg Newsome in the 1st round. Not really a position I saw them needing, at least not as a 1st round thing. And
I think they went BPA.
Right. So I was sitting there, saying, why not take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah? And then he slides to the second round. Cleveland grabs him. Like they killed it. And like Jay just said, Demetric Felton as well. They're by far the best team on paper in the AFC North right now. Would be very shocked if they don't go out and win this division. Everything Cleveland's doing right now, that new regime that they've had the past couple years is doing fantastic. And they deserve a lot of credit. And the fact that Kevin Stefanski is now the man in charge in terms of head coach, they've found their head coach, they found their quarterback, something that they've been searching for since their resurrection in 1999. My God Almighty, everybody, the Cleveland Browns are a force to be reckoned with now. And it's a weird thing to say out loud, but you look at that roster, there's not. Find me a hole. Find me a hole on the Browns roster. I can't.
Yep, I agree. Jordan, any thoughts on Cleveland?
Quarterback, maybe?
Oh, wow. Quarterback. Wow. Okay, go.
No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, I agree with the Browns, in my opinion. Like, I think Carolina had the best draft top to bottom. Like, I literally just went through all of their picks, and there's not a single, like, all of them are phenomenal and guys that I love. I think the Browns' first two picks, though, are so phenomenal, and especially, I know it's draft weekend, but if you factor in what they did in free agency, too, that defense is looking terrifying because that is a secondary now that is going to have Denzel Ward with Greg Newsome opposite him, who I'm very high on. If Greedy Williams ever turns into anything as well, you now have 3+ corners. You have John Johnson, who we as 49ers guys know is probably the most underrated defensive player, not just safety, in my opinion, in the entire league. If Grant Delpit turns out into what I think it could be, all of a sudden you're looking at that defense, that stack. If Jadeveon Clowney shows up for half the season opposite Myles Garrett, all of a sudden you're playing with a defense that's not only going to be, adequate as I think it was last year, but it's going to actually be an elite unit. And you have Kevin Stefanski on the other end with that efficient kind of, Kubiak, Shanahan-esque play action West Coast scheme. And all of a sudden, the Cleveland Browns are a team to be reckoned with. So I think one thing too, I will give a shout out. Andrew Berry, the GM, is very numbers oriented. So I think it was a big win for the analytics nerds today.
I love the part about the analytics nerds. For us, fantasy perspective for Cleveland, real quick before we get into another winner.
Which part of Cleveland? I mean, their offense is very similar. I mean, Odell Beckham's coming back. That's the only real difference from what we've seen. We know what the running backs are going to do. Run-oriented Nick Chubb is the guy that their offense runs through him, regardless of what the backfield looks like. But yeah, Odell Beckham Jr. coming back into that role. That role is very important in that offense, which is why, like, when he left, Rashard Higgins kind of came in and took over that role. It's one of those things where, like, they run a lot of play action, right? And on those play actions, those deep wide receivers get those looks. So, like, yes, they might not be getting, 8 to 10 targets per game, but the 6 to 8 that they're going to get are high value targets, right? And that's kind of where OBJ kind of fits in. Whether you believe in him or not, he's in that role right now. So it'll be interesting to see, where people are drafting him. Am I really targeting him? No. But at the same, because I don't think the upside is ridiculous, but depending on where he lands, he could be a decent value pick.
So Jared, another team that won in the draft that you can go into if you have any, and then we'll dissect it the same way.
We talked about your 49ers, we talked about Frost's Jets. Time to talk about my Steelers because, my God, we got Najee Harris. It happened. And it's something that I didn't think would happen. I thought,
Jared, you mocked him. You mocked him every single time that you did a mock. So don't act like, oh, we didn't know. Take your victory lap, bro.
Well, here's the thing. Early on, I was mocking ETN there because I thought that Miami was going to snatch up Najee Harris and run. It just made too much sense. They take Jalen Phillips. As soon as they take Jalen Phillips, I'm like, oh my, we might have something. Look, in terms of this team, running back was such a disgusting need. Najee Harris is going to fit so well into that offense. I cannot wait to see 22 in the backfield. Looking at what they did later on, Pat Freiermuth, the tight end out of Penn State, an unexpected get. I didn't hate it. Now, there was a lot of people who didn't like the pick because everyone's saying they need to go left tackle. They need to go left tackle. They did. But I think the thing that is being said with the Pat Freiermuth pick is that, all right, Matt Canada is going to have fun with this. You look at a Matt Canada offense, very zone affiliated, very run affiliated in terms of zone running. Pat Freiermuth is a great blocker. You can put him at the H-back. He can line up in the slot to catch passes, hand on the ground as well as a normal tight end. He's going to play all over that offense. Cannot wait to see what he does. Going to be a good red zone threat. So Pat Fryermuth also a good pick, and then they get Trey Norwood out of Oklahoma in the 7th round, another really good DB. Down in Mobile, he had his inconsistencies in Mobile. He's just over aggressive. If they can kind of tame him down to buy into these zone schemes, I think Trey Norwood's going to fit fine into this cornerback room that's needed desperate help. They waited to the 7th round to address it and gave me a small heart attack. But the fact that they get a guy like Trey Norwood with that kind of value, I think he's going to fit in fine. But no, Steelers it's kind of an up and down draft. They started off pretty hot, kind of dipped a little bit, but at the end, no, I'm happy with how things turned out.
So, Jordan, I saw you kind of react to one of the guys that Jared mentioned. Did you have anything to add, or?
I think it's criminal that the Steelers took Najee Harris or a running back in general when Darisaw and Tevin Jenkins were both on the board. I know a couple Steelers fans who feel the same way. I can't blame them, but I'm here to be positive. I'm not here to rain on Jarrett's parade because Najee Harris is a good player, and I think he's going to be good in that offense. And I think that the Steelers, as much as they could have after draft, I'll put it to you like this. They took Najee Harris, and then the Jaguars took all of the bad press, bad public, whatever you could take from taking a first-round running back, and the Jaguars took that and ran with it by panicking and taking Travis Etienne because Kadarius Toney, got drafted 5 picks earlier by the Giants. So now that Steelers pick looks a lot better because they at least have a plan for Najee, and I think Najee is much better than Etienne. And then Freiermuth, I loved. I talked to Jason about it a bunch. I wanted the Niners to take him at 43 and have him in 2 tight end sets where they run 22 personnel with Kittle. I thought that he's a great player. I know he gets compared to Gronkowski a lot. I think it's unfair to put that on him, but you can see shades of the same playing style, very physical, a guy that's going to run through people, smart, heady player. And then Kendrick Green was their best pick out of all of them, to be honest. I mocked Kendrick Green like crazy to the Niners because my guy Brad, the O-line guru, was at the SF Niners, put me on Kendrick Green. And that man can block. He is physical. He is mean. He literally got branded. Like, that is a tough dude, and he is going to fit in perfectly with that smash mouth, Pittsburgh, Steel City style of we're going to come out here and just smack you in the face. And I liked it a lot. And again, if you're going to take a running back in the first round, you better make it count because my whole thing is I don't know if you know, like, I'm so anti-running back early that it just, like, on principle, I can't agree with it. But if it's going to be anybody, I can respect it being Najee Harris. If they took Javonte Williams, I would have loved it too because I actually had him slightly ahead of Najee. But he's a Bay Area guy. Saw him, when he grew up and was playing around here a lot, and he's a stud. So I can appreciate that. And again, from a fantasy point of view too, he's easily the best running back you're going to want to take in a rookie draft this year too, in my opinion. For like dynasty point of view, it's not even close, really.
So I was just going to say real quick, Jared, I'll give you a chance to, rebut any of that, and then we'll go right to Faraz about the fantasy impact.
So, yes, there's a lot of people that wanted, Darisaw was there. I get it. I do. But the thing is that this is an incredibly, incredibly deep tackle class. It wasn't a very deep running back class. There's probably 4 or 5 that will give you really good value. After that, I wasn't high on anybody being a bell cow in that offense. They needed to get somebody. They go and get Dan Moore, left tackle out of Texas A&M, very good zone blocker. Again, fitting into Matt Canada's offense. He's a very big zone guy. So they are really buying into that entire scheme that Matt Canada is going to run. I agree with you, though, mate. Kendrick Green, brand on the arm. I would cry and pee in my own mouth if I got a brand on my arm. That sounds like it would hurt really bad. The fact that he's going to be the center from day one. They signed B.J. Finney as a depth guy. You can't. My guy Nick Farabaugh will second this from ACC Network. You can't go into the season with B.J. Finney as your starting center. So they go and get Kendrick Green, who's going to start day one. They're going to put Kevin Dotson at left guard, all-pro David Castro at right guard. I'm pretty sure Dan Moore is going to take that left tackle spot because Chukwuma Okorafor cannot start at left tackle anymore. And then it seems that Zach Banner is going to get a chance to claim that right tackle spot that he earned last offseason, but then tore his ACL week 1 against the Giants. So the offensive line seems to be the template that they're going to run with for now. We'll see how it goes going forward. But I think that, yes, there were some people who wanted Darisaw. I get it. But you got to understand it's an incredibly deep tackle class. I understand that they didn't really address that right away like I expected them to as well. They got Freiermuth, but nonetheless, they're getting guys that fit this new scheme. I'm going to buy into it until I'm proven wrong. So right now, I'm high on it, loving the fact that Najee Harris is there, and we'll see what happens going forward.
Awesome. For us, fantasy impact Najee Harris being RB1 over there. James Conner just left. Talk to me.
Yeah, man. I mean, Najee Hart is like the RB1, like from my head, but like in my heart, it's Michael Carter, man. Michael Carter, it's my guy, man. And you're imagining like Michael Carter, like, yeah, and you imagine like the early round running back, against that, and like, yeah, I'm with that too. And apparently, if I'm a real fan, I'm hoping that certain needs can be met before I have to pick a running back. So I'm happy that the Jets were able to get Michael Carter so late. Yes, he's not like a workhorse back. He can lead this committee, 1A type of guy. Like that's basically what's happening right now with the Jets. And maybe he could play 65% of snaps, something like that. Maybe some sort of Austin Eckler type of role. I can totally see that from him, which would be amazing. So I know you asked me about Najee, but I wanted to throw my Michael Carter Jet stuff in there too. Najee's the RB1, dude. Like Mike Tomlin, like he was not having this timeshare stuff. Like he was not having it. Like over and over again, he kept coming out and saying, "Dude, like we could do that. But, like I really want my workhorse, So he got his guy, regardless of what the offensive line looked like. He didn't care. He wanted one of these top backs, and he got him. He got the top back in the class. For a lot of people. A lot of people thought Najee. I like ETN a lot, but from a pure NFL perspective, I totally understand going Najee here. And from a fantasy perspective, dude, RB1, man. Rookie RB1. Travis Etienne landed with the Jaguars. He's in a timeshare. Javonte Williams landed with Melvin Gordon in Denver. Timeshare, at least for this year. This is Gordon's last year. Who knows what the ETN share is going to look like over the next couple of years, right? Who knows how long James Robinson is going to be there, what the situation is going to be there, but we'll see. As far as Steelers go, he's going to come into his rookie year dominating snaps, man. I can totally see him playing 75% of snaps year one.
Jared, anybody else that you felt won, or if not, you can just get into the people that like whiffed on their drafts completely, because I'm sure you got some.
Yeah, no, I think those were the ones that really hit. In terms of the ones that missed, and I hate to do this to my Laces Out co-host Kurt Homiser, what in God's name are the Buffalo Bills doing, mate? We know that Brandon Beane values height now. He goes out and gets Gregory Rousseau, who's 6'7", and then he gets Spencer Little, the tackle out of Northern Iowa, who's 6'8". Looks like he was created in a Vince McMahon wet dream. So I don't know what they were doing. They get 2 pass rushers in the first 2 picks, which, okay, I guess that's kind of a need right now considering that their pass rush is old, but you could have got another cornerback to complement Tre'Davious White. I get that Levi Wallace is there. He's probably better suited as a third guy. They could have done a lot of different things to better help that defense. Now, Russo, not a horrible pick, but the fact that they go another pass rush on Carlos Basham right after that, and then a left tackle with an offensive line that's still – did they not just extend Deion Dawkins? And I'm pretty sure he's their left tackle. So I
thought they did.
Yeah, so it just seemed a lot of picks were out of left field. So, and I think it was who was it? It was one insider tweet. The Bills' mindset like, hey, what do we need? Not really a whole lot. All right, let's just draft 7 pass rushers then. So I think that was kind of their mindset at that point, and they didn't really come away with anything. At least not of note in the early rounds. I'm going to go through when we hand it off to you, Jay, and then Faraz and everybody, and see what they got late round, because I'm pretty sure they did snag somebody who I did like in like the 5th or 6th, but first couple rounds, I didn't see anything to be impressed with.
Jordan, did you see anything that the Bills did that like jumped out at you was either wrong, or a reach or anything like that?
I mean, I thought the Russo pick was interesting because I was fairly high on him earlier in the process, just based on like a intangible standpoint. Like he has good height, he has good length, but he also is so raw. He's going to take so much time to kind of develop, in my opinion. And they went so like tackle heavy in the middle round. I'm with Jared there. I don't know what they were thinking. I really like the Boogie Basham pick on a positive note. I actually told I have a couple of, remember, Jay Spence and John, who we did a pod with, are both Bills fans. I told them in January that they should take Marquez Stevenson and cut John Brown, and they ultimately ended up doing that. So I felt good about that, but that doesn't change the fact that was, that's a day 3 guy. That's just kind of like a hopeful wide receiver 3, maybe. They prioritize, like they've had the right mindset, in my opinion. Like they prioritized edge. I just don't like the players that they took there. And I think Boogie Basham will end up being a pretty good player. But the Russo pick, man, I'm sitting here and I'm just like, hey, if he pans out, it'll look really good. but I just think it's way too high of a risk when there were really good players still on the board there that you could have taken at that edge spot, especially considering Joe Tryon went one pick after that, who I think is a substantially better edge player. So, we'll see how it pans out. I could end up looking really foolish for saying that, but yeah, I don't know what their whole strategy was there. And it would have been cool to see them add some more weapons for Josh Allen before waiting to add Marquez Stevenson. But, it is what it is at this point, I guess. Yeah, I wouldn't feel great if I was a Bills fan about the draft. Like, it wasn't horrendous, but I also I wouldn't really feel great about it, like I said.
Marquez Stevenson was a great pick. I will say that. You look at, he's going to be a special teams ace right away. They lost Andre Roberts, so he's probably going to be the guy that they put back there. He's Houston's all-time leader, I believe, in single-season kick return yardage per kick. He averaged 36 yards per kick return. That's absurd. And he had 3 career what am I trying to say? 3 career return touchdowns. There we go. Got it out. He's an absolute baller when it comes to special teams. So he'll be that guy, probably a 4th receiver, 3rd receiver, maybe, depending on how they feel about Gabe Davis. But he was the pick that I really liked getting, and we saw him in Mobile. Jay, he was a baller. So I did like that pick. But yeah, I'm with Jordan. It was a weird draft for the Bills.
So as far as fantasy perspectives go, I think everybody expected the Bills to go ahead and go running back, at some point, and now I'll pass it to Faraz. How should, people value this backfield going forward, on May 1st?
I was so surprised. Like, I can't figure out what Bills are trying to do with their running back room. Honestly, like every free agent running back that comes in, apparently they're so interested in every running back. And now the draft comes around, running backs are available, and they don't want to go in on any of these guys. So I can't figure this out. Now, listen, I'm not a Zach Moss truther or anything like that. He's the only guy I'll take a shot on in this backfield late in drafts if he's available. The Bills just don't want to run the ball. Like, they turned into a pass-heavy team. It's just like in Baltimore. It doesn't matter what wide receiver they're going to draft. There's not enough volume there for those guys. The same thing in Buffalo. Like, it's going to be a split. Based on merit, neither of these guys, Devin Singletary or Zach Moss, came through. Cream usually rises to the top. Neither of them could have done it. If Zach Moss didn't hurt his toe early in his rookie year, maybe he would have done something. It's possible, but he lost all momentum that he had. And listen, when that game 1, he came in and he was getting most of the work in the red zone, rushing the ball, receiving. I think he had 3 end zone targets in that first game. So he's somebody I was interested in at that point, but he got hurt. The momentum never carried him over. So late, sure, like I might take a shot because he's capable in both the run and the pass game, red zone potentially. Obviously, Josh Allen's going to steal a lot of goal line work. But if any of those, it would be him. But I wouldn't be surprised, if the Bills make some sort of move because they apparently weren't happy with any of these running backs from the draft. But all in all, I think I'm going to win this backfield for the most part.
I mean, good insight there, honestly. Jared, did you have anybody else who you felt like really whiffed on the draft? Or should we just talk about guys that you felt like were taken in places that you were surprised about or feel good about?
I feel like both of those are going to blend here because everybody in the NFC East not named the Washington football team. What the hell, mate? The Cowboys took 3 guys in the 3rd round that
all linebackers.
I hadn't really heard too much about them, and I felt like
Jabril Cox is good.
No,
I will say that.
Yes, Jabril Cox is good. I'm talking about, last night they take 3 different guys, and maybe it was the 2nd or 3rd round, day 2 guys that I hadn't heard much about, and so I tried to do a little bit of digging, and sure enough, I saw Matt Miller's Twitter saying, yeah, those 3 guys that they took I had as either 6th, 7th round picks or undrafted. I don't know what they're doing. So I'm glad that I wasn't alone with that. Then the Eagles, they took, 2 D tackles and another defensive end. They didn't really address the secondary that much. I don't know what they were doing. The Giants take Kadarius Toney in round 1, which I thought wasn't the greatest pick when they have 1 trillion receivers on the roster already. It didn't make a whole lot of sense when Kwity Paye was right there for them to take, and then the Colts take him right after they don't. So, yeah, everybody not named the Washington football team in the NFC East, not the greatest draft, but Washington crushed it. So, yeah, those would probably be in terms of the teams that didn't do the hottest. And Jay, Jordan, I don't know who we want to go to after this, but yeah, NFC East, not named Washington, all not the greatest drafts.
Let me just answer this, John. Cleveland has been amazing. the entire time we've been here. Everybody's been super nice, and everyone has, you know, they're in a good mood because the Browns are good. They're very good, actually, and I think the town has that vibe around it. So, Jordan, did you have anything to add with that with the Giants? I mean, that reaction video of the guy watching the Giants get jumped for, you know, it. So the Eagles and the Cowboys basically conspired against the Giants to get Devontae Smith. How do you feel about that move? And is that any sort of tactique, or is that some sort of like over the top thing that you don't do because it's division meets?
I think it's just hilarious, honestly, because Dave Gettleman literally never trades back. He never trades back, and he literally was so caught off guard, I feel like, and so taken aback that he didn't even have a plan B at 11 there. And he literally had to sit there and move back because the Eagles obviously leapfrog. And I don't know how you feel as a Giants fan going from Devontae Smith to, like, I think Kadarius Toney is okay. I wouldn't have touched him in the first round personally, but I think it's kind of crazy how you go from just like, oh, Devontae, especially with the run on quarterbacks early. Oh yeah, of course there's going to be a guy sitting there for us at 11. You'd have to expect Justin Fields would have been off the board as well by then. And then here you are coming out of this round with Kadarius Toney instead of Devontae Smith. I don't know what they were doing. I'm in total agreement with Jared. I think that the Washington football team had a phenomenal draft. I think, again, I said on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, that De'Ami Brown falling all the way to them, I feel like it's going to be exactly like how it is now with Terry McLaurin, where we're looking back. Like,
Jordan,
how did he fall here?
Look at their receiving core right now, man. They got
it's
McLaurin, Samuel, De'Ami Brown. Ryan Fitzpatrick is just going to fade back and say to hell with it. One of them's down there.
And Logan Thomas. They got a pretty good tight end, too, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that team's looking pretty good. So I think they did it. One thing I will say in defense of the Cowboys was, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of the name, but the D tackle they took in the third round out of UCLA, Osa Odigizua, however you say it. I know Matt Miller was kind of dumping on him, but I had the pleasure of talking with Quinn Miners, legendary Senior Bowl, the gut himself, and he said at the Senior Bowl his toughest assignment when he was doing one-on-one reps was Osa. So for whatever that's worth, I think that testimony would, if I was a Cowboys fan, I'd feel a little bit better hearing that there was a guy that was going up against him that felt out of all the people at the Senior Bowl in the one-on-one reps, he was the toughest assignment. And I loved Jabril Cox. I was shocked that he fell as low as he did. But other than that, yeah, like the Micah Parsons pick, what are you doing? I think Micah Parsons is a fine player. We factor in there's the off-field concerns, and ultimately, I could see him being a Donta Hightower kind of player, but to me, that player is losing value every year. That kind of linebacker that's not, I don't say Donta Hightower is a liability in coverage, but his strong suit is playing the run and blitzing. And I just feel like you could get that kind of player in the middle rounds. And when you're sitting there and you're picking it, 13 they ended up at, or 12? 12. If you're sitting there at 12, there are still blue chip guys on the board there. And the fact that O-line has been going through hell recently, and we saw how bad Ezekiel Elliott looked when that O-line was bad. There were still so many guys that could have used to address the trenches on either side of the ball. I don't know what they were thinking personally. It takes away from it. And then again, some of these guys are taking like Golston, the guy out of Iowa. I don't think he's terrible, but I think there's an issue where some teams just aren't tapped into positional value. And while there's something to be said for getting your guys, if you can get your guy later because other teams just simply aren't valuing them. I think the main culprit this weekend was the Raiders. The Raiders were just like, what are they? Every year they do this, it seems like, where they're taking a guy that's either just, Alabama player, a Clemson player, somebody from the college football playoff, and it's a player that, like, no offense to Alex Leatherwood, I thought that was the worst pick in the entire draft, honestly. So I think there's a fundamental issue where some of these teams just don't understand positional value relative to how other teams have them ranked on their boards.
First of all, Jordan, you beat me to the punch in terms of the Raiders.
Sorry.
But you look at how the Raiders draft, and you just mentioned it. It's either an Alabama player, a fast guy from Alabama, or somebody who played in the college football playoff. I mean, they reached and took Clelin Ferrell at 4. They took Damon Arnett at 18 last year, and he was a third-round grade by most experts. So, yeah, I don't know what the Raiders think that they're doing. I don't know what Mike Mayock is trying to pull here. But it doesn't seem to be working when they just got rid of their entire really good offensive line and then reach for a dude who probably would have been there in the second round for him to take. So, yeah, the Raiders, I'm glad I'm not a Raiders fan. I'll say that much, Jay.
Did you see the Middlecoff tweet? John Middlecoff tweeted out that he got it from a good source that when they took, I think it was right after, and I actually liked the pick. They took Divine Diablo out of Virginia Tech. It was a little earlier than I expected, but he tweeted out right after they picked back-to-back two things. He said, I have it from a good source that A, the Raiders don't understand relative value to other teams' boards, and then B, John Gruden went rogue. So I would love to see the scene in the Raiders war room where John Gruden's coming in with that weird scowl with the eyebrow up, and he's just, coming in, erasing the board and scribbling on his own players, whoever he wants to take, because I have respect for Mike Mayock, but I'm starting to question now, after 3 drafts, it's been terrible. It's not just been every team misses, but it's been terrible, and it's, again, taking Cleveland Farrell when Josh Allen's still on the board, and you have a huge needed edge, taking Damon Arnett when there were so many good players left on the board, prioritizing Henry Ruggs over CeeDee Lamb, none of it makes sense to me. And I think at a certain point they have to start being held accountable. And ultimately, Mayock's probably going to be the fall guy because Gruden has that contract, and I don't think they're going to pay him not to coach. So he's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. But it's like it's funny because as a Baylor guy, I don't really hate the Raiders. I know a lot of people here, Niner fans, hate the Raiders. I don't hate them. I feel bad for them, dude. Like they lost their team, and their team is just, and it's like historical ineptitude. So my heart goes out to Raiders fans out there. You guys really don't deserve that. I'm sorry, like.
Bro, and that's how like Yankees fans feel about Mets fans. Like we don't like talk crazy about them. We're just like, yo, I'm sorry that. But Faraz, I know you have some thoughts on their draft, so go for it.
That's not cool, man. I thought we were talking football here, man. That's not cool, dude. Like, come on, man. Like, you got to bring the Mets in here. Like, come on, dude. Like, I thought we were cool, dude. Like, you're just sitting right here too.
He was talking Niners and Raiders, so it like felt.
Free Jacob DeGrom. Get him to a real franchise.
Dude, like honestly, like that's literally how Patriots fans are to Jets fans. Like we don't hate you. Like you guys just suck. Like we just feel bad for you guys. That's literally what it is. But what was the question? Like, did you ask me something?
No. It was more about what the Raiders have done lately with their draft picks and how they've Kenyon Drake gets signed and like the ineptitude. Like you release all your linemen. More about that.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable. I like you said, like Mayock needs to be held accountable at this point. Like, he needs to go back to being an analyst. And honestly, like after the type of draft picks that he's been making, I'm not sure if ESPN going to give him his job back, to be honest. And now, like, I think John Gruden's going to be there regardless. I think he's not doing a bad job in terms of coaching what he's been given, but at the same time, I think he's been very involved in the draft process here, and I don't think it's just Mike Mayock making all these picks. I think Gruden is involved there heavily. So I'm questioning all of it, to be honest with you. In terms of, like you said, man, Henry Ruggs, huge disappointment there. I thought they were going to draft one of these top wide receivers because they had a need for a true X wide receiver, right? Like, who is that dude, right? Are they really going to depend on Bryan Edwards? Is he going to be the guy? Like, I bought a bunch of rookie cards for him, so that's looking good. But at the same time, like that's not what I thought was going to happen here. I like Bryan Edwards. I think like he broke out so young. I think he broke out at 18 years old. Had like a huge dominator rating young. So I think that he could potentially pan out because he had that injury last year. But yeah, I'm not putting any shares into Henry Ruggs at all. I just it's really all Waller right here. And in terms of that backfield, dude, Josh Jacobs, it's not looking good for him, man. Like Kenyon Drake is going to get that third down role, and he's going to get sprinkled in early downs. I could totally see 5 to 7 targets a game, and then on top of that, 10 to 12 carries a game. So that's a legit workload right there for somebody like that. Josh Jacobs, maybe like 15 carries a game, 2 targets a game, something like that. That's not going to get it done for fantasy. Between those two guys, Kenyon Drake, especially if you play in a full PPR league. And if you don't play in a full PPR league, honestly, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand. But it's going to be Kenyon Drake, honestly, going into the season. In Dynasty, like, still, like, as long as he's on the Raiders, as long as he has that coach, it's going to be a situation where they're not going to trust him with the game.
Jared, anybody else that really stuck out to you that swung and missed, or any players that you felt like jumped out at a spot that you were excited about? Like, where did your guys go, Jared?
Oh man, I had a lot of guys in this draft that I really liked. Hamsan Nasruddin, he went to, I believe, the Jets, if I'm not mistaken. Did he go to the Jets?
Who?
Hamsan Nasruddin Florida State?
I believe he did.
He did.
He slipped a lot. I expected him to be somewhere in the 4th to 6th rounds or 4th to 5th rounds. He slides a little bit. He did have the injury last year, so he fell a little bit. Shi Smith, another one of my guys, goes to Carolina. I was very happy about that. He's going to do incredible things in Carolina. Benjamin St. Juste, cornerback out of Minnesota, goes to the Washington football team as part of their fantastic draft. Other guys, I liked Jason Oweh being a Penn State guy. He goes to Baltimore. Baltimore got they got Rashad Bateman, and then they got another one of these receivers as well, who I'm forgetting about right now. Somebody help me out. Who's the other receiver that Baltimore got? Rashad Bateman and fill in the blank here.
Tylan Wallace.
Yes, Tylan Wallace. So it seems that Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman, and Tylan Wallace will be each competing to lead the Ravens with 13 catches this year. Good luck to them. Cannot wait to see how that plays out in Baltimore. But yeah, a lot of my guys went to really good places. I'm excited to see. Now, I don't believe Cade Johnson got drafted. I'm pretty sure he's an undrafted free agent. He was another one of my guys.
Seattle, man.
Seattle. Oh, all right. Well, I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. That's not where I would have wanted him to go.
They're due to make one good move every 6 months, 8 months. They do something smart, but it's bound to happen.
Yeah. He's a fantastic player. Austin Watkins, another guy that I really like, goes undrafted. We'll see where he ends up. Is there an update?
Signed with the Niners.
He signed with the Niners. Austin Watkins, all right, perfect. I know
got it out the mud. Make sure you go read up the Austin Watkins article I wrote on 49ers Goldmine, by the way, also on top of that. But yeah, man.
I'm celebrating with you. I know how badly you wanted that, so congratulations for you. That's fantastic. Afatu Melifonwu. I was so high on Afatu Melifonwu, and he stayed on the board, and he stayed on the board, and he stayed on the board. He slipped so much further than I thought he would. And I'm filling in time because I'm actually going to look to see where he went because, my God, I've been just doing nothing but...
Detroit at 102.
Detroit.
Literally
a
pick before the 49ers. I swear, I have a strong hunch the Niners were going to take him when they took Ambry Thomas instead to pick after. I think they got sniped.
Man, I talked to Afatu. He's an awesome dude. I cannot wait to see who he does. I talked to Benjamin St. Juste as well. His story, man, Benjamin St. Juste, the past year for him, his entire college career is a story, man. He starts out at Michigan, contemplates retirement. He told us that he just didn't think that Michigan had his future in mind. So he goes to Minnesota after, deciding to keep playing. Then plays through the pandemic. His family's in Canada. Hasn't seen his family in a year, man. If anybody deserves some success right now, it's Benjamin St. Juste. So I'm excited for him. We'll see how he does with the Washington football team going forward. I think he's going to be a phenomenal guy that they can plug in nickel and dime situations. I think that he can play multiple schemes, being the fact that he did it in Michigan and Minnesota. They can plug him in a few different spots on that defense. So one more thing before we continue, Jay, because we haven't talked about this yet. Where the hell is Aaron Rodgers going to end up? Because Eric Stokes isn't a guy that he can throw to, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, Jared, you are the one who floated out the idea of the Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers thing. Here's the point I'll pass along to everybody. Will Aaron Rodgers just take his ball and go home and not play for anybody? Because I think he will. Honestly, I think
he will.
Jordan, apparently, look, if you look at Benjamin Albright's tweets today, he had a 10-tweet thread of how this entire thing happened. And literally, the first thing that he asked when he asked his representation to reach out to people was to go to San Francisco and say, come get me. And San Francisco reached out, and Green Bay said, no, thank you. Any thoughts on that, Jordan?
Well, yeah, of course Green Bay couldn't do it. And as much as I'm excited for the Trey Lance era, Aaron Rodgers is literally one of my favorite players of all time. I'm a Cal guy, and I think he's just literally the most talented quarterback I've ever seen with my own eyes. And I think you can make the argument he's up there with Marino, Elway, and some of these guys from a pure physical ability to spin the football. It's one of the greatest to ever do it. So I would have traded that 3 and some other stuff without even thinking twice, even if it was only a 4-year window. Even 3 years of Aaron Rodgers, I would have still made the same trade. But from an optics standpoint, there's no way Green Bay could have done it. Because if you look at what generic, diet, off-brand Shanahan and Matt LaFleur did with Aaron Rodgers, imagine what the real Kyle Shanahan would do. And then you factor in the San Francisco's roster as a whole is much stronger than Green Bay's, and a Green Bay team that won 13 games a year and was in the conference title game. And I think San Francisco, all bias aside, top to bottom, is a much better roster. It would have looked horrendous if they not only fell short and didn't address the most simple need of a quarterback, a franchise quarterback, and just drafting him a secondary wide receiver, getting him some weapons. So you ignore these needs. You come up short after they won the Super Bowl 11 years ago. You come up short after all these years, you trade him, and then hypothetically the 49ers go in and they win a Super Bowl, maybe 2 with Aaron Rodgers coming back. Like, the optics of it would be terrible. And the other thing too, them taking Jordan Love last year, what are they going to do? Are they going to take Trey Lance at 3? Are they going to take Justin Fields at 3? It's going to look terrible because you're already punting on the guy that literally started all of the disconnect, was them taking Jordan Love last year when they needed to take a receiver. And then to compound it again, I'm sure Eric Stokes ended up being a great player. I thought Tyson Campbell was a little bit better than him. But with Elijah Moore staring you in the face right there, who would have been the perfect complement to Devontae Adams, the day that all these rumors come out, and it's not even rumors to them because they know how disgruntled Aaron Rodgers is, you still double down and take a DB. And I like Amari Rodgers a lot. I think that's a good pick. But that would have been a great pick along with Elijah Moore. Draft 10 receivers. Like, it's Aaron Rodgers. And it's just, like, at this point, the Packers, not the fans, the organization deserves whatever ends up happening here. And honestly, we were talking about it earlier, how disgusting Washington's weapons are. If he could somehow work his way to the Washington football team, I would honestly hate it as a 49ers fan, because that, to me, immediately becomes the best team in the NFC. If you look at that defensive line, the additions to the secondary, and then you have Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball to those weapons, that's a scary team. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they do end up playing hardball and they don't move on from him. But if they do, it probably would be an AFC team, just again for the optics. And it would be anybody but San Francisco, because they know how bad it would look if the 49ers ultimately got him. Even if they only had it for 3 years, if they won a Super Bowl in that span, you'd never hear the end of it. So I'm not surprised, but I am a little bummed, because for 3 hours on Thursday, I thought maybe there was a chance it would happen.
I wonder.
So, go ahead, Joe. You're good, bro.
So I'm wondering here, Aaron Rodgers makes weekly appearances on McAfee. I wonder if those are going to continue. I wonder if we're going to hear anything from him this Monday, because if we get the normal appearance, because we know how tight McAfee and Aaron Rodgers are, there's going to be some stuff said, because we know one thing: Aaron Rodgers does not care. So I hope that we still get it. Now, the other thing I'm wondering about, Denver was rumored to be heavily trying to get him. And a lot of things in terms of their pick of Patrick Surtain were that, they weren't going to take a quarterback because they're in on Aaron Rodgers. So there's a few places that he could end up, obviously, if this does go through. And like Jordan said, if they do decide to do it, if they realize, okay, there's no salvaging this, we got to move him, they're going to try to gun for an AFC team. But I 100% agree with Jordan. There's no way in hell you can give him to San Francisco, because if he does win a bowl or 2, that's horrible. Not just for, the fact that he didn't do it with you, but the optics that leaves behind, man, there's no recovering from that, at least not for a long while.
Yeah, I agree. And, Faraz, your thoughts on whether Rodgers will be moved, or if he's, let's just say hypothetically in a world that he's still there, the fantasy value of guys, and if he's not there.
I mean, the fantasy value of guys, if he's not there, I mean, like, it goes down, man. Like, Devontae Adams, he got it done, when Rodgers got hurt a couple of years ago. But he just, that's barely what he did, right? He just got it done. The upside that he has right now, his dynasty value would just take an immense hit, right? It wouldn't be anywhere close to what it is right now. So, do you have an opinion on Rodgers? I think he ends up making it work. It doesn't seem like a situation where, it's funny because the contract situation it seems like it was a contract situation for the most part, because it seems like there was not a contract on the table for Rodgers when he made these complaints. And when he started making these complaints, when it became public, that's when Green Bay was like, here, what I'm saying, here's the deal. We put something on the table now. And now it's like, okay, cool. Like, it's because it came to this point. So, he's a little disgruntled, obviously. Can I see him walking away? Sure. Like, he doesn't have to play. But I do think he's trying to cement his legacy at some point, and he wants to continue playing and win a Super Bowl. It's going to do with the Green Bay. Like, I think so. I don't know what team is going to step up at this point after the draft, and is going to put anything on the table close to what Green Bay would be willing to give him away for. Yeah, fantasy value though, dude. Like, everyone's going to 0. pretty much. Like Devontae Adams he has some value because he's a baller. But Jordan Love isn't going to do his thing with Devontae Adams.
All right. Well, I mean, I agree with you there. That's what I was telling you. Like when we were on the plane, I was like, should I trade Devontae Adams right now? Because I just didn't know what the temperature was with Aaron Rodgers right now. But I guess, look, we're getting close to an hour. Jarrett, do you have anything that we should be touching on? Any team that or player that we missed, or something that surprised you, or somebody that would, and we'll go around, before we wrap it up. But if Jarrett wants to start.
I think J.C. Horn to the Panthers was fantastic. He's my favorite corner in the draft. That was just step one of them just absolutely kicking the shit out of this draft. So fantastic job by them, man. J.C. Horn going there. Trying to think of any other mid-round guys that really just stuck out. I think we touched on a lot of them though, Jay. I don't know if Jordan or Faraj have any ideas
Jordan?
here.
Anybody else?
I know I swore. I'm sorry. It escapes.
I think that a team that it didn't get talked about enough that had a really good draft was Minnesota, actually. I thought Minnesota, they had 4 third-round picks, too, and I thought that they nailed them, truthfully. They get Darisaw in the first. They obviously didn't have the second because they traded for Yannick Ngakoue. It didn't work out. The Kellen Mond pick was kind of strange. I like Kellen Mond, but, you have a top 10 quarterback already. So, I mean, what are you doing wasting early capital? This is my theory. They watched a division opponent in Green Bay draft a quarterback and greatly upset and anger their starting quarterback and propelled them to an MVP season. So I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is going to win an MVP, but I might have checked the odds and I might be tempted to make a small wager on the Kirk Cousins MVP futures bet right now. But after that, in all seriousness, they take Chad Surratt, they take Wyatt Davis, and they take Patrick Jones, 3 guys who I love. Chad Surratt is a guy that I think it's unfair to say that I think he's going to be Fred Warner, because Fred Warner is one of the best linebackers, if not the best linebacker in the league. But same kind of player where he's going to be this modern NFL, out in space, can cover in the slot, isn't a liability in the run game, and he's a smart, heady player. He's a former quarterback who understands what offenses are going to be trying to do, and he's just like a solid athlete. He's a guy that I think will end up being a home run pick there. Wyatt Davis was a phenomenal guard at Ohio State. I liked him a lot. I thought he would go in the second round. Minnesota has had issues with that offensive line, so now with him and Darisaw added to that offensive line, it's going to be very good for Kirk Cousins, obviously, and I think it's also going to help Dalvin Cook. And then Patrick Jones out of Pittsburgh. I know you guys were at the Senior Bowl. I don't know how you felt about him. He was one of my favorite edge players in the class. So I think getting him opposite, hopefully Danielle Hunter comes back and he's healthy. All of a sudden I'm looking at Minnesota. That's a team, that was hovering around 7-9, 8-8. Here they are. They're going to come out next year and they're going to be 9-8, 10-7, Like they're going to be in back of the mix a little bit. So I thought Minnesota had a really good draft, especially in those middle rounds, because to me, the drafts really get won in the second and third round. Most people are going to get blue chip talent in the first, but when you really are nailing those picks in the middle rounds, it's going to create some success moving forward. And nobody would like to see Kirk Cousins succeed more than myself. So I'm very glad that Minnesota, by all accounts, had a good draft.
Yeah, I want to make sure that that's clear for anybody who doesn't know that if anybody wants to see Kirk Cousins succeed, the only person that wants to see Kirk Cousins succeed, he wants to see over him, is Ryan Tannehill, and that's that guy right there. But yeah, for us, anybody that you were interested in that got moved, in later rounds, anything like that, or people that you're interested in.
Yeah, no, before you asked about like any surprises, and I think the Giants, they had some good picks and they made some interesting moves, moving back and things that they haven't been doing before. But the Kadarius Toney pick was such an interesting one for me. I mean, and a lot of people talking about he fits the offense, etc. But still, like fitting the offense is one thing because coaches can move, schemes can change, but you kind of want to get that talent, man. Like. In the round that high in round one, I understand you moved back to get that pick, but Rashad Bateman was still on the board, Elijah Moore is still on the board. I don't care like what you're trying to do and what role you're trying to satisfy. You gotta satisfy roles later in the draft. Right now, you try to get your ballers, and I don't know what they're gonna do now, right? They have Sterling Shepard, so now they have Kenny Golladay, right? They have Darius Slayton. What are they gonna do now? Are they gonna kick Sterling to the outside, like a Darius Toney slot? Are they going to run him out the backfield? What are they going to do? Are they going to – I mean, they're not going to play Toney on the outside, right? Darius Slayton probably only playing on the outside. So how many snaps is Kadarius Toney going to play, like, from the get? as your round one pick, you want that guy on the field as much as possible, and I just don't see that with the Giants.
One more
Jared,
that I wanted to
yeah,
add.
Jared.
Yeah, Rondale Moore to the Cardinals did not make sense to me at all. I love
Hate it.
Rondale
I
Moore.
hate it, Jared. I hate it.
I
I
hated
hate
it too.
it.
I hated it a lot too. He was one of my favorite players in the draft. I wanted to see him go anywhere pretty much but there. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. They drafted Christian Kirk in the first round a few years ago. Andy Isabella's a really good number 3, number 4. I don't know where he's going to fit into this offense. So that really upset me that Rondale Moore is now an Arizona Cardinal. Was not happy about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure they like Isabella's too much. They had I think it was Keyshawn Johnson was playing over Andy Isabella last year at times, and so I'm not sure what Kingsbury thinks of him. Kingsbury's offense, man, it's been disappointing so far. I don't know how they're going to use him.
So strange.
But what was super interesting that they didn't. I mean, didn't have too many draft picks this year. At least between in the middle rounds. I think they didn't have one between round 2 and 5. And they didn't end up drafting a running back. Right, they signed the corpse of James Conner. Listen, I love James Conner. I have mad respect for that dude because what he came back from. But at the end of the day, where he's at in his career right now, like it's the Edmonds show at this point. Surprisingly, like he did his thing in college. He was a workhorse there. Coming into the NFL, he's a small back, but at the same time, like who else do they have? Right, he's going to be their guy. So as far as why he goes, I'm betting on Chase Edmonds this year.
Yo, speaking of Chase Edmonds, Mike Davis comes out of this weekend probably the biggest winner of all fantasy production, people, right? Atlanta drafted no running backs, and Mike Davis ends up being right now at May 1st, 10:08, their de facto starter. I don't know where, again, fantasy implications aside, but it's just the Falcons did a job where I'm just like, I don't understand why you aren't addressing needs that you need. And Jared has been beating the drum for I don't understand why Kyle Pitts would be the pick when you need so many other things. So I'll let Jared, expand on that. But when you look at right now fantasy, if we're doing a redraft setup right now, Mike Davis is a high round pick because who else is there in Atlanta right now at this point?
Yeah, and I was banging the drum that Atlanta should trade back. It just doesn't make any sort of sense that you look at how horrible their defense was last year and all the games that their defense blew, whether it was Detroit, Dallas, the late season game against Tampa Bay, Chicago, all 4 fourth quarter leads, all 4 games.
Kansas City too.
The Kansas City game as well. So all games in which they had leads or were incredibly, incredibly close throughout, and their defense blew it. So, yeah, they should have traded back. They should have got a lot more defensive value. I get that. Kyle Pitts is fantastic. I'm going to address this question right now. Chances we trade for Odell.
The Niners.
Or Julio.
There's been a rumor going around 49ers Twitter about Julio for Jimmy Garoppolo swap. I'm just saying, I've seen it out on the timeline. I don't know how valid it is.
Jordan, you goofing. You know what you're doing. You goofing.
Look, I mean, Jay, that's probably a more you question. What would they give up? I mean, I think Odell's probably more. Well, I guess Atlanta's been shopping Julio too, so maybe they're both becoming more realistic.
Jordan, you see me? 0. We're not getting Odell Beckham. We're not getting Julio Jones. That's a pipe dream. But we got to answer the question. Thank you, Mike, for asking.
Thank you for asking and donating. It means a lot.
I would say there's like a 5% chance either of them it happens because I think that you can never count out a team just wanting to dump salary. And especially with the addition of Kyle Pitts in the Julio's case, Atlanta's in a position where they would be more comfortable probably moving on from Julio and freeing up that cap space because it's going to give them more flexibility with Matt Ryan going forward and what they're going to do with him. But again, it's another situation where I think Atlanta's in a spot where they're going to actually try to compete this year. And they're just, like Jared was saying, they completely ignored the defense early on, which was their main problem. They didn't have problems scoring points last year. I think now they're just at the point where they're just going to try. It's going to look like the Saints offense did for, those Saints teams in the mid 2010s, the last, before that big 2017 draft where they were a great offense, but they were 28th, 29th, 30th in defense every year. And they're just trying to outscore teams every week.
You mean the years that they went 7-9 and 8 consistently?
Exactly. Those years.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be for. So I would expect that's where Atlanta's going to hover around. They're not going to be a terrible team, but they're also going to lose a lot of games again because of that defense, which cost. Like the offense was good enough; they could have been a playoff team last year if they had a semi-competent defense. So it makes no sense. And, Kyle Shanahan, when he falls in love with a player like he did with Julio and Odell, I don't think we can rule it out entirely. But yeah, I'm with Jason. It's essentially 0, but it's like.
So we're at hour 5. Let's answer this question. I'm gonna pass it around to everybody as well. Thank you, Jamal, for the donation. We'll start with Faraz and we'll dip the other way around. Why wouldn't teams draft at least one running back with 17 games now and running backs having a short shelf life anyway? Makes sense to draft every single year. Faraz, I'll let you start, bro.
It's amazing, man. I'm so surprised the Falcons didn't address that. Edo Smith, gone. Brian Hill, gone. Todd Gurley, he was going to be gone no matter what. Dude, like, they had Mike Davis, man. That's it. Like, he's going to be there every down guy. Like, who else are they going to put in that position? They have a Quadri Olsen, right? I think that's the other dude that's still there. Decent back, a lot of dynasty players there. But at the same time, like, he's going to be their guy. And I agree with the question. It's like, it's a long season. From a pure NFL perspective, you don't want these guys hurt, man. Like, you want these guys to be able to, like, look at what North Carolina did with the running backs, right? This is the draft show. So, Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, it's not like they pounded Javonte Williams every single play. That's how you get production. That's how you get efficiency, right? And they came in for different plays, and look how efficient Michael Carter was able to be because of it. So that's the kind of this is the kind of like system that you want on every NFL team. From a fantasy perspective, you want those bell cows, but at the same time, if Mike Davis were to go down, they're in trouble there. It's not like this is the Shanahan offense where it doesn't matter who's coming in. You know what I'm saying? You can throw them in and they'll be fine. That's not the case. It's not going to be the case in that offense.
Jared, you go for it here. Why wouldn't teams draft one running back at this point? I understand the whole running backs doesn't matter, and I'll end with Jordan because I know he has like a long rant about running backs. So we'll go with you.
No, I mean, I'm on the running backs matter side. I think that, you look at the teams who maybe weren't known for their running game. I mean, they look at what Clyde Edwards-Helaire did for a team like Kansas City. I mean, he's given them just a whole other, side of that offense. So it does make sense, even if it's not, a starter. I mean, get somebody in the backfield who can at least spell, your starter, get solid, 8 to 10 touches a game. I think we're going to start seeing that more. With the extra game, we're going to see running backs start going off the board more and more in the late rounds just to add some depth. Makes sense, and we're going to see a lot of these undrafted guys go to camps and see if they can win some sort of job. But I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing, in the near future, more and more running backs in the late rounds get taken just because the shelf life is short. So you got to gear up on this for an extra game now for the foreseeable future.
Jordan, you're up, bro. Talk to me about running backs.
Yeah, so the thing is, I think it's not a bad strategy if you're taking guys that have value at a certain spot. Like, I'm not trying to sound homerish here, but, if you're taking Elijah Mitchell in the 6th round and he's a guy that you identify like Kyle Shanahan did today, I loved that pick. I think Trey Sermon's a great player. I'm not going to lie, being completely objective. I was a little upset that the Niners traded 2 4th-round picks to move up into the 3rd, 14 slots higher than they were already picking to take a running back. Like, that just didn't sit well with me. And again, it's nothing against Trey Sermon. I think he is a good running back, and I think that he brings a lot of things that the running back room may not have currently. He's a little bit more physically imposing. He has a little bit of balance. I like the player. I felt way better about the Elijah Mitchell pick. I thought Detroit taking Jamar Jefferson at the very end of the 7th round was extremely good value. Kellen Hill going at the very end of the 7th round. If you're doing that every year, that's totally fine by me because we've been spoiled a little bit as Niners fans watching what Kyle can do with undrafted free agents. And I understand not everybody's going to be able to do it, but I would just feel so much better taking those guys day 3. So if that's the strategy where, you're just rotating, you're saying, I could get an undrafted guy, but I could get a guy who's slightly better on day 3, somewhere between picks, like 180 and 230. I think that's fine. But if you're spending significantly high capital on running backs, that's where I have an issue because, again, like in the question, they do have short shelf lives. And I just think that more than any other position in the entire sport, running backs are so scheme dependent. And if your scheme is good enough to put a running back in a position to succeed, how much value are you really getting from that elite level player? I just haven't seen it be worth it, truthfully. So it's a good strategy, but it depends where you do it. So yeah, if you're taking the guys later in the draft, I'm totally cool with it, but I just wouldn't be spending picks in the top 100 on running backs. And I'm upset that my own team did that, to be completely objective. Like, I like Trey Sermon, but I just don't see the value there.
Hey, I hear it. We're at 110. Jared, is there any final thoughts on any picks that we didn't talk about, anything like that? And we'll pass it around so we can end this up. And thank you to everybody who's tapped in with us for an hour 10 and sent donations and stuff like that. But Jared, what do you think?
Nah, man. I think that we've covered this pretty well. It was a fun weekend. About time that we got here, I was tired of doing mock drafts and talking about this. So yes, I'm very glad that it's done. I'm glad that we can start projecting, and I cannot wait to go make my way too early season predictions in terms of division standings. It's going to be so much fun. I'm going to get a lot of love and a lot of hate, probably more from Titans fans because I'm about to dump all over them. Spoiler alert. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. I shouldn't dump on Titans. They had a solid draft, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, no, I think that's a good place to leave it. And then yeah, division predictions. Cannot wait.
So for everybody else that doesn't know, we'll go around. Jordan, Faraz, Jared, tell everybody where they can tap in with you on your social medias, and we'll start with Faraz.
Yeah, just an upper hand fantasy on Instagram. Yeah, I just put out a ton of fantasy advice. That's basically what I do. So just hit me up, DM me. Appreciate it.
Jared.
Oh, I don't know. I was up. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL. Bunch of stuff coming from Fansided in terms of grading certain teams' drafts. So gonna hop on that. So those will start releasing tomorrow. Steelers Sports Illustrated as well. So a lot of stuff to be discussed here in the next couple of days. So the draft's over, and now we start recapping. So find me at JBaileyNFL, Fansided, and Sports Illustrated.
Jordan.
You can find me at Twitter. My ad's right there under my name here, at Splash Cousin. Some football analysis with a lot of goofing. I mess around a lot on Twitter, so if that's up your alley, you definitely going to want to follow. You can also find me at 49ers Goldmine or at DSF Niners. I do a lot of lives on Instagram. There's also another YouTube channel we do there as well. But yeah, the Twitter is the main spot. That's where you're going to find the juiciest Jordan content. That's where the good stuff comes. So give me a follow in there or don't. I'm not really phased either way.
Yeah, man, and thank you guys for I know that we missed last week. I attended a pro day and we weren't able to do Two Skinny Dudes, so I'm glad that we were able to do this. So thank you guys for
a pro day. That's what we'll.
We'll talk. I think we need a pod on the pro day so we can talk about the events that led up to it. Jordan was there, and he'll tell you also things that happened as well. But for everybody who tuned in today, make sure that you subscribe, comment on the video, and make sure that you share with everybody as well too. And we'll be back next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. For Jared, Jordan, for us, we're out here.